So we're having to keep splitting it up because this issue with the traffic now, and obviously watching the dog, and as you can see now the verge is much narrower, so we're just having to make sure we're nice and safe. So this is still Mortimer Road, dropping down to Mid-Hope Stones and background. Still a fantastic view. So I've probably only seen 4 cars since I joined it, if that. One walker, there's a cyclist approaching me now. But Mabel's especially frisky. So it's jerking the camera. So I know, like I say, this is the Peak District up to the left up here. I mean, you wouldn't know any difference, like we keep saying, you know, it's just land at the end of the day, but there's a different law over there than there is over here. That's the easiest way I can describe it. You can't have all this industry to the left unless it's of national importance in the Peak District. There's an awful lot of protected areas, and the population within the Peak Park boundary is much lower. Morning, mate, you alright?
How are you?
Yeah, thanks. Is much lower. I believe the largest town still is Bakewell, my ancestral home where I went to secondary school, where the Bakewell tarts come from, and that I believe is no more than 6,000 to 6,500 people, and then the villages within. Buxton, the larger town, isn't within the boundary, although it is classed as really very much part of the peaks, and it's within the High Peak. So we drop down here now to Mid-Hope Reservoir. There's a lot more going off in terms of, because you're next to a road and watching the dog. It's not something I'm going to be doing overly regular. There's somebody coming up with a horse now. I think it's the woman I possibly passed earlier. She's just gone round. So we'll pause her again. So we're dropping lower down now. I remember seeing these walls with turf on top across on the left side here on this grouse moor. And I think they're for shoots. So when they have the grouse shooting season, which starts on my birthday, the 12th of August, purely by coincidence, there's a big stile there that you can walk across the moors to. But now we're getting to the situation where we've had 2 cars at once. But it's not a big issue other than with the dog, because shortly I'm going to cut off and down through Mid-Hope and into the woods. And the boundary down here is still to the left of me, I believe. And I think it runs down and either follows this road in about 100 yards to the left, or somehow cuts through the centre of these woods down here. Why that's so, I don't really know, because I mean the boundary was put in place in the 1950s, so these woods may not have even been here then. So it appears that they follow field boundaries or roads in this area anyway. Cars coming up. Lots of rubbish at the side of the road from people that just chuck it out, which I just find so lazy. I'm afraid that's human beings for you. There's a couple of cars there. Now shortly we're going to get off this B road and back onto a slightly quieter road. So we've come down to the Midder Reservoir. Just here, look. But at the moment they've got the footpath closed sign up here for logging. There's logging going off. So it looks like access to that field over there and that small plantation they've been logging. But I wanted to come down here just to see all these thousands of trees that have been planted in these grazing fields higher up. I think what we're going to have to do now is go back up Mortimer, the way we just come down, and onto Gilroyd. So I'll do that. So the boundary between Mortimer Road and this little lane now around the back of excuse me, Midder Reservoir is known as Gilroyd Lane. So we continue the theme of the grouse moor there above. So I'll check when I'm home to see down this bottom end where the boundary actually runs. I don't think it's this road. I think it's further into this wood. But because this is a fairly recent plantation around the reservoir, there doesn't seem to be any overly mature trees other than further down. I think this must be Mabel, this must be a, sorry, I was just trying to get you on wide there. Oh, this must be a newish plantation. So there's quite high, sort of 5 foot netting on that side, which wouldn't keep a deer out. Not a red deer or a roe deer. In parts it might, but I think that's been built up more to keep sheep in. So whether they'll have some low level grazing over there. But it's predominantly a grouse moor, full of heather and wimberry. Specific moor kept for the breeding and shooting of grouse. So the issue with Mortimer Road, which I've just come down, is obviously the busyness of it. And apart from the top where it's quiet and a nice wide verge, it isn't further down. So you've probably got 500 to 700 yards of busier road, say 7 or 8 cars I encountered in my 10-minute walk down it. And I can hear them behind me now, whereas this one is single track again. Much quieter. But in the distance over there, if I'm not mistaken, I can see the Woodhead Pass Road and traffic going over to Manchester, over the moors. So this wood round the reservoir's got the rabbit netting in, so to help the plantation, to keep the rabbit out. No gate post from days gone by there that's been filled in. And I remember from before down there, there's a couple of houses just at the back of the wood here, but this all seems to be sycamore, probably no more than 30 years old, 40 years old max, looking at it, and then conifer further in. So it's quite purposely planted by the looks of things. Silver birch within, it's quite a deep dense wood. There's still dappled light on the forest floor. But at the moment there's no walking through it because of the logging activity. There's a gate at the back here. Mabel! But it does say no public access through there anyway. So So that must just be an old access for the loggers. And there's this lovely big property here at the back of the reservoir. Much older sycamore there. Mabel's really wanting to run free, but at the moment, being on the road, she's much too frisky. There's a big holly here, and it's lovely and quiet, so this is a nice route. So if you can walk down without your dog, or a much older dog who's more under control than Mabel, from the Windhill Lane down Mortimer Road, it would be a quick, probably 7 or 8 minutes onto Gilroy down here. Like I say, routinely I'd have cut down through to Midhope Reservoir, which is in the bottom down here. We're going to try and work round, but this road now, Gilroy, goes up to Upper Midhope, or Midhope as it's known, and that village is within the Peak Park boundary, and there's another stile there that takes you on up into that moor. You can hear a kestrel of some sort overhead, and in the distance on the moor there I can see the shooting butts that they can rest the rifles on, and the beaters put the grouse up at the end of the summer. And this isn't me advocating shooting in any means, it's just an observation of what's there. So this stand now down to the right is the sycamore, which have purposely been planted around the edge, you can tell here, and then a Scotch pine plantation behind it, which always seems to let more light in, Scotch pine, than larch. They don't have to be planted quite as close together, so they make for a lovely forest floor. And then down here we've got the timber forest just here. Sorry, the timber collection area, which you can see they've been managing. One vehicle and a motorbike, so we're not doing too bad. No public access, stacked timber, danger of death, keep clear. So we're not going through there today. It's Mabel's shadow. She looks like a greyhound. I look like a giant. Yeah, there's a big line there of shooting butts. We're coming down now. A little bit of a way. I think we're still a good mile down to Upper Midhope. But I remember when I've walked this route before, there's a nice track off this road and up into the village, a really old track, instead of following the road round. And this can continue on from Upper Midhope down to Midhope Stones in the bottom, and going back down towards the Stocksbridge Underbank Valley. Or you can cut off left from Upper Midhope down to Langset Village, well, it's a hamlet, and Langset Reservoir, which again, the reservoir is actually in the Peak Park boundary. And these moors up to the left, during just before the D-Day landings, the Second World War, were used by a lot of American troops for tank training in preparation for the D-Day landings. So it's still known to this day as Little America. And in the car park at Langsett Reservoir there's some information boards which are very interesting. And a lot of the local troops were billeted and stationed with local farmers. So again we've got this lovely big wall around the reservoir here. It's nearly 5 foot tall, that I'd say, easily. Beautiful capstones on the top, and then through the trees down there I can see the water of Middup Reservoir. I think we've got more Sitka spruce down here. They're definitely not larch, and they're definitely not Scotch pines. They look more like Sitka, which are a Norway tree, but they have this lovely pine needle on them, lovely green thick pine needle, ideally suited for our climate. But how many of them are actually going to be cut down for logging? The price of wood, I believe, is almost doubled in recent months because of the shortage. So the price has shot up, so people are starting to apply for logging licenses, and that's what happens to woodland, and they get replanted again. But once they're cut down, it opens up a habitat for a whole new different flora and fauna to exploit as the young saplings continue to grow. But as I said, connected to Oaks Lane above Stocksbridge, and this reservoir has been thousands of trees planted in fields in recent months. Well, no, in the last year actually. More logs there. I see a big evidence of where they're coming from. I was using them for stacking here, and that'll all go off in big wagons, and the reservoir's there through. Now there are some lovely walks around this reservoir, but at the moment we can't access them. What's taking my fancy still is this gorgeous stone wall at the side here. It's not a traditional gritstone, dry stone wall like this Pennine upland there. This is younger and more specifically built with square stones, so they've been sculpted and shaped for use in a wall around the reservoir. So all these reservoirs were Victorian sort of era as far as I'm aware, so the Victorians were very specific in stone masonry, and that's one thing that's been left behind, as well as the reservoir and the old buildings with it. As you can see there, you've got this fantastic wall. So Gilroy Lane changes on this corner here, and there's another of those signs there about the ecologically sensitive verge managed at the side of the road. It's the first car I've seen in a while. And then we'll cut on down, and this is Shore Lane in the bottom. It's quite unusual to me, this, because where I come from, a lane is a lane until it meets another road. And I don't come from far from here, so it's slightly different. Oh, this car's coming. Come on across. So this is the reservoir down here.